You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a wash machine.
Monte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And this is the final show. This is episode 122. This is the final show of the 2018-2019 season. But don't worry, because next week we'll have an episode 123, because that's the way it works when you do an episode every week. But this week, Jay Grant will join me. Jay is the owner, the lead on the Southampton page on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And that page, the Southampton page, is the official partner of the podcast. So it's always good to be able to talk to Jay. And we had set this up some time ago that he would come on and talk after the final game of the season, give his thoughts on the season, talk about the year for the page and some big milestones that he hit, including going over 20,000 of you following him on Instagram. And that's a big deal. And we were really hoping that the season would kind of, end on a high. And instead it was a 1-1 draw with a team that was already relegated. But that is, in the grand scheme of things, I think okay. But Jay and I will kind of parse all of that out over the course of the episode. And generally I record on a Sunday morning after a Saturday game, or directly after the final whistle on a Sunday. But because Jay was at the game, and yesterday, Sunday, was Mother's Day here in the United States, that didn't happen. So I got up on a Monday morning, rang Jay up on Skype, and kind of started talking, and then I had to go to work. So we've put the episode together over the course of the day. I think it's all ready to go. Hopefully it is, and hopefully you enjoy it. But one thing that we had to talk about today that we didn't have a whole lot of information on, and I don't think really anybody has a whole lot of information on, is the new sponsor. LD Sports will be the main sponsor for the club on the front of the kit over the next 3 years. Jay and I had as much information as we could have just a couple hours after it was announced. So we'll share our concerns with that. So you get the kind of, I wouldn't say the non-reasonable, but it's the freshest thought. And other than that, just a quick shout out to the under 23s who today or yesterday secured promotion to the PL2 Division 1 with their victory over Newcastle. So congratulations to them. They get to go play in the highest division that they can, and that's really good for the club. It's really good for them. And it was really nice to see Ralph in the dressing room afterwards, giving them a speech and cheering them on and letting them know that he appreciates their work. And hopefully we'll see some of those guys come up and be training with the first team. And also hopefully the guys will stay in that division and continue to enjoy their football, because I think they played some pretty good football. If you don't watch them at all, I don't watch them a lot, but whenever I get the chance, it always is pretty entertaining. So congratulations to them. And before we get into the episode, just thanks for listening. It's been an up and down season. The team has gone through some highs and lows, and there were times that, you kind of look at what you're doing and myself in terms of the podcast, and you just wonder kind of, is this the right thing to do? Are the episodes coming off okay? Are we going down? Are we driving the wrong narrative? Is there anything else that we can be doing? Are we just repeating ourselves every week? And so hopefully you've enjoyed it. The podcast numbers say that many of you do. The messages I get say many of you do. So thanks for all that. Thanks for the support. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to heading into the summer, into the transfer window, which is my least favorite time of year, but to keeping the podcast going and heading into next year and hoping that things are going up. We have more wins and more goals and things like that to talk about. But anyway, let's jump into it. This is Jay Grant. He runs the Southampton page. You can find them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Southampton page. You can also get a hold of Jay at Fatal J if you are interested in that. So with all that said, this has been a way too long intro, but let's get into it. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you on the other side. I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Jay Grant. He runs the Southampton page, which is the official partner of the podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Southampton Page and at Fatal J, and make sure to check out the Instagram account. And if you're not there already, I say it every week, there's over 20,000 people that are following along. And if you're not one of them, you should be, because that nearly fills St. Mary's. And Jay, you were at the game yesterday. We're here to talk about the final game. There's kind of the season as a whole, and what we've been doing this year between you and I. And in between all of that, Southampton just announced its new sponsorship deal, new primary kit sponsor. So lots to talk about, and different for me because we're recording on a Monday morning, which means I have to go to work in just a little bit. So we'll run through it. But first off, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I said the voice is a little bit croaky after yesterday, but yeah, apart from that, not too bad, and looking forward to the summer now.
You picked a nice day to be in the stadium. No rain, nice weather, sunshine, everything but the game, I guess, itself was good.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, the game wasn't the best, to be fair, but no, the weather was nice, so that's always a bonus. Being in the stadium, was it, how different is that for a match day experience from being, elsewhere and having to listen to the game on the radio or watch on TV? What's the biggest difference for you being in the stadium versus elsewhere for a match? Well, obviously, when you're in the stadium, obviously you get the obviously when you're getting ready to sit in your seat or you're down watching training, everyone's obviously really excited, and you get that atmosphere, do you know what I mean, building when you're walking up to your seat. But yeah, no, it's obviously when you're away from it, like I have been for a while, it's hard obviously to get. Obviously, you can enjoy it, enjoy the result and make your comments on it. But when you're there, you can see it for yourself and manage to get a better view of it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and where were you sat yesterday? What section of the stadium?
Unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunately. It was good to see it. It was literally right next to the away fans who were quality yesterday, because I thought they were pretty awesome.
All 12 of them, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was next to them yesterday, so that was pretty good. But unfortunately, I was dead in line when a certain keeper made a mistake. But we'll talk about that a bit later.
The Huddersfield fans were given a free yellow away shirt, I think, for making the trip, and I know Huddersfield had to actually send some seats back to Saints because they weren't going to sell out the allocation. So, but fair play to the people who did travel down. It's an already relegated team. That's a long trip on a Sunday. So good for them for showing up. And I think they were rewarded. They saw an away goal. They saw a point, which they didn't get very many of this season. And they got a free shirt out of the deal. So that's good for them. But we'll come on to the game and the mistakes and all of that in just a little bit. But I'm sure everybody knows about the Southampton page. If not, I talk about it every single week on the show. It's always in the show notes and stuff like that. But just for maybe somebody who's tuning in for the first time, how has your season gone? Not in terms of the team on the pitch, but in terms of how the page has run and things like that. Like what, I guess, a summary of your season and how you feel about the page in general.
I think it's gone well. Instagram for me has always been a shock, as in how it's built, because I started it as just a little project, and now it's obviously practically my life, really. I wake up every day straight on it. I'm posting every day. It's managed this season to get past 20k followers, which obviously I'm really chuffed with. And obviously now the Twitter page is starting to, not obviously it's not as prominent as my Instagram, but it's starting to build up more, because obviously I've got people that do that page, so obviously I don't have to rely on that, and obviously the people that work on there, which I mentioned before, do a really good job. So my main aim probably for next year is obviously I'll keep the Instagram going, obviously that's going well, but I'd like Twitter to I'd like to have an influence on Twitter and Instagram, obviously, together.
Yeah, it's been really weird to me as running the podcast. As the podcast, there's a Twitter account, there's an Instagram account, and they are two very different accounts. They operate very, very differently, even though I'm the same person and I run them both. Like something that people like to interact with on Twitter doesn't necessarily do the same thing on Instagram. Things that do really well on Instagram seem to not do as well on Twitter or Facebook. And it's just trying to keep that in mind when you're posting stuff, trying to find time to do all of that. It can get overwhelming. And I've made a big kind of switch, I guess, middle of this year to just try to spend less time staring at the screen and worrying about it. And it's been a little bit different, but it's a challenge because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people posting, and a lot of people show up and they start posting and then they go away, and that's difficult as well. Just to know, you constantly get asked for shout outs because your page is so big. So it's you have people who shout me out and give me followers, and they have a post and it's something you actually posted before. That's my favorite. But I mean, I think you can. The same thing goes is, you post a picture of Fran Benali or a picture of just a random training shot, and a lot of times that'll do better than some of the match day stuff that we do, and that's the stuff that takes a lot of time, and so it's just different and weird, and it's fun to do no matter what. It's not just about likes, but it's about engagement with the listeners and the viewers and stuff like that. So I know we're both always trying to figure out ways to get people more involved because we want to hear their opinions. I think that's why we do it.
Yeah, and obviously with Twitter, I don't obviously run that as well. So obviously it's different people anyway, because obviously the other people that do Twitter don't interact with people as much as I do. If they listen, I'm sorry about that, lads, but you don't. But but I do more interaction on Instagram with people. I try and reply to comments, and I do this. And obviously, if I go on Twitter, like I said, I do bits if they're not there or someone's busy. So I sort of use that as my. I usually jump in if needed, if that makes sense. It's just different for me anyway. So if I'm on, like I said, Instagram, obviously it's just me, so I try and interact with people. But then obviously when I'm on Twitter, I just go on there, add a bit of news, then come off again. So it's like two different roles for me in a sense.
Sure. And for if people don't know, on a match day, generally the Twitter account is a place you can follow along on a match, stay up to date with things. If you're not able to be near a radio, if you're not able to listen in, or you're not at the stadium, you can get that stuff. And both accounts have stuff posted on them every day at least, and most times if there's news coming out, it's there as well. So that's the main way I use the Twitter account, is to follow along on news, because I don't necessarily want to follow 15,000 accounts and get the same news a bunch of times. So I find the one that I trust and I go with it. So and I would say that even if you weren't the partners with the show, but yeah. I don't know, man. So like for you over the summer, what do you take a break? Do you just, this is my least favorite time of the year. I've said it 1,000 times. As soon as the transfer window opens, I will be miserable because I hate the speculation, but I realize that's part of it and I should just stop complaining about it. But I don't want to. The problem is I get really interested in what's happening, and I want to figure out if are we getting this guy, and how much time do I put into looking him up and figuring it out. For something that somebody had a dream about, and now they're posting about it on social media, and now everybody's in an uproar. But for you, what does the summer look like for you in terms of running the pages?
Well, I think Twitter will go on anyway, because as I said, the lads there like to continue that. So I'd probably expect Twitter not to have a break. Myself on Instagram, I think I'm going to have a thing. It's tough really, because I was reading online that the transfer window opens in 4 days' time. So the rumours start pretty fast. So I'll probably have a week's break or something, because obviously if there's a transfer, and obviously with Ralph stating at the end of his press conference, his talk with Soden, he wants to get his signings done pretty quick. So I would expect it to get quite busy. So it'll probably be a week break, mate. It probably might not even get any if the news comes out quite quick. So I might try and have a little one if possible.
Yeah, well, Saints didn't waste any time. Final match yesterday, less than 24 hours later, new sponsor announced, and all of a sudden it feels like things are moving forward, which is good, because typically we've waited. Think of the Danny Ings transfer last year. It was the last day of the transfer window. So for us to get things done early, that would be nice. And then maybe that stops the speculation, but I don't know. All things for me go back to that stopping, but I don't know, like the season in and of itself, like the ending to yesterday, Ralph mentioned it during his kind of talk. It was kind of typical of our season where we created chances but couldn't finish. We got ahead, we lost a lead through an individual error, and that kind of just sums up how things have gone for us. But for you, I guess, is the season now, like, how do you view the season? Because I think it's maybe it's wrong to say it's successful, because 16th with the squad that we have, with a manager I think as good as we have, that's not necessarily great. I wrote in the newsletter last week that as much as the feeling around Saints has changed, as good as I feel about Ralph, and he's not my friend, I probably should call him Hasenhuttl, but as good as I feel about Hasenhuttl and what he's done, Saints have never been above 15th since he took over. And so for me looking at the season, there's still a lot of questions I have, even though it all feels really good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thing is, I'm with you on that. I don't class the season as successful because I don't think us finishing 16th is what we aim for as a club. The start of the season wasn't the best. Ralph come in, gave us a lift. There's been some good. The results have improved. Don't get me wrong, but it just proved to me, and exactly what I've been saying, this summer is crucial for the club because we've got to get it right on the pitch. Otherwise, like I said, because I said this last time when we obviously stayed up against Swansea, I don't want another relegation battle. I don't want to, and obviously we did, didn't we? We were in a relegation battle again, and I'm going to say it again, I don't want another one next season. But that's why this summer is crucial that we get things sorted. Because I said that despite the manager coming in, and he's done a great job, the problems are still there, losing from winning positions, the defensive mistakes, sometimes a lack of goals in games. Do you know what I mean? So there is still problems there, but obviously it's not fixed overnight. But this summer is the reason why we need to get recruitment spot on, and we need to get players out at the same time, which is not easy because there's a lot of players there on a lot of money. Yeah,
it is. There's a lot to do for the club.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, like I said, it depends on. It just needs to be. That's why I like Ralph saying it needs to be done early, because the sooner it's done, the sooner we can get ready for pre-season. Because I want us ready for pre-season with signings and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be crucial, especially if you look at the way Ralph wants the team to play, that if somebody's going to come in, they need to have a full preseason in order to be completely ready, because otherwise the energy, if the energy is not there and the commitment's not there, or look at Danny Ings, is the fitness is a concern if you're not ready, and he's definitely keeps himself in good shape. It's just your body will break down under this kind of stress, and it's just part of how it works. And you've even seen other teams that play this style have to adapt how they go. You look at Pochettino at Spurs, you look at the number of injuries they've sustained over this season. You look at Klopp, you look at the way that he's kind of altered his game this season. So the success can still be there, but you do have to kind of manage things a little bit differently if you're gonna go about that. But let's step aside from before we jump into the game. Let's step aside and just the news came out this morning. Literally, I saw it about a half hour before we got on that Saints had started or signed or whatever, agreed to a new kit sponsorship deal. The Virgin Media will be the sleeve sponsor, and it looks like LD Sports, which is a startup, a Chinese startup, is going to be on the front of the shirt for the next 3 years. Club claiming it's the most lucrative deal. No numbers, as far as I know, have been released, but you can Google it, I can Google it, and not much comes up because the company hasn't launched yet.
No, because I tried this morning, and all I get is JD Sports, which obviously isn't LD Sports. So no, I don't really know about. Originally, I thought it was something to do with Lander, obviously Gal's company, but it's been reported elsewhere that it's not to do with him. So yeah, and also I don't really know much about the company. I don't know how obviously the deal was supposed to be the best. Obviously, it'll be better than what Virgin Media did for us, but I don't know how much that impacts us in the future, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it is really kind of concerning because LD Sports is a brand new sports content marketing and entertainment platform. Well, if you're a sports content marketing and entertainment platform, I should be able to find you. That otherwise you're not marketing much. But it is going to be launching this summer, and I think that the biggest concern for me is I live in California. That doesn't necessarily mean I am some sort of tech entrepreneur, and I'm not. But I've seen enough that a lot of startups don't last 3 years. It just doesn't happen. So I'm a little bit worried that we signed a 3-year deal, but in 3 years, there may not be an LD Sports. Maybe they sell to somebody because they get big enough, or maybe the company just goes away because it fails, and that's all possible. But my thinking through it and me trying to be somewhat positive for it is that it's not a betting company. And so I think that's going to be good for some people. And it seems like the club was a little leery of going that way. Which personally I'm happy with. Gambling is something that plenty of people I know struggle with, and so to not have that on the front of the shirt is good, for me at least. It is lucrative, I guess, so that'll be good, and the sponsorship's actually going to run all the way down through the ranks, and it'll be on the under 23s and under 18s, which is good. But there's been a lot made of the fact that it's a Chinese brand. For me, I mean, you look at the number of people in China, and from Gal's perspective, he doesn't have to grab a huge share of the Chinese market to watch Southampton for that to be lucrative for him. There's so many people there that any small kind of percentage is going to make up for monetarily. It's going to account for a much larger share than if you get the same percentage of English fans. And I don't think that necessarily Southampton is growing in the UK. I think that maybe that's part of it. But I don't know. I could be completely wrong, and I don't know what it's going to mean for people who live in Southampton in terms of I can't see a lot of people making the trip over from China to watch the team, and really how much does kit sales in and of itself really account for the money that we generate. I think the more so if you show up to a match day, you went yesterday, you buy a Coke or a hot dog or a pie or a beer or whatever it is, and pretty soon you've spent more than just buying a kit, and you want that to happen 18 times or 19 times a season, not some dude in China bought a kit once and that's it. That's the affiliation with the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Well, yeah, because I think that's what the aim is. I think he's trying to get us marketed in China, but it's obviously it's not just us trying to get marketed in China. If you think about it, obviously in the past, I think Man United have done stuff over there, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. So I might be wrong with some of them, but I know in the past, and when you're trying to compete with them, a Southampton compared to them isn't going to get the revenue, but he's maybe thinking he's got a market where the club could get looked at by more Chinese people. But obviously, like you said, it's one of them, because we don't know much about it, it's hard to comment positive or negatively on it, really.
No, and I guess, I've been proven wrong before, but you try to see it what it is for the best, I guess, and you just hope. But I think my one concern is any startup is going to be a little bit dicey because you don't know if they're going to be around. That's I'll stop there in terms of criticism or anything like that, and we'll just have to see how it goes. And there's some talk online about the way that sponsorship's going to look on the shirt. Not sure that a blue and white logo looks great on a red and white striped shirt, so we'll have to see what the club go with there. That logo would have looked really nice on the yellow and blue away kit for this year, which I think Virgin had a real issue with because of the way their logo looked on it. But anyway, we'll deal with that when it comes out, because until then there's really no use. But I think it deserved a mention here. But getting back to yesterday, the team that played away at West Ham was not the strongest team. It was a chance for some people to get a run out. We talked about that last week on the show. But this week, I think that the starting lineup is as good as we can get given who's injured and who's available. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, I agree with the point you made about the lineup. Because obviously after the West Ham game, it wasn't the best. Obviously, I know he was giving opportunities to people, and Ralph obviously thought that was going to work. But listening to him after the West Ham result, it was obvious this squad was going to be much better. Obviously, he entrusted in bringing Gunn back in, which obviously, was good at the time. But and then obviously he's bringing other players back in. I think he brought back in Redmond, Ward-Prowse, I think. He brought in. Anyway, the squad was as good as it could be. Obviously, he didn't have Vestergaard, Yoshida. Obviously, so you bring in all the players he could have available to him, and like you said, probably the best squad available to him at that time.
Yeah, I mean, people are always going to complain about Jack Stevens. This is something that people have been complaining about for several weeks now, and every time he comes into the squad, which he hasn't played well enough, so I'm not gonna be upset about people doing that, but. I don't know. Overall, a back four, a chance to see something a little bit new, maybe try some things out for next season. Valerie, Bertrand, Stevens, Bednarak across the back. Romeu and Højbjerg kind of sitting a little bit deeper. Ward-Prowse, Redmond, then Ings and Long. And, think about back to September, October, even into November, December. If anybody has Long in the starting lineup, people are upset. But he's done well recently. He was hooked off at halftime yesterday, as we went back to a back three with Bertrand shifting into the left side of a back three and Target coming in. But, overall, I don't think there's too many complaints. But again, the team didn't really perform to the level that you would have expected. You would have expected a little bit more. And really, the only real person doing anything yesterday for large parts of the game was Nathan Redmond.
Yeah, and obviously that showed why he was obviously the player of the season. That obviously the goal he scored yesterday, I had a great view of it, and it was such a brilliant goal, and it just showed how much effort he's put into this year. And like I said, obviously there's people out there, and I wasn't going to mention it, that seem to not like Redmond no matter what he does. But if that person watches how Redmond plays yesterday, then that's why he's good.
Well, there are some people who have made up their minds about things and they refuse to change them, and it upsets me sometimes, because I think there are certain elements of Twitter and certain people on Twitter that they border on things that I don't want to discuss. Really, they border on things that just they're looking to wind people up, and they're looking to just bring people down, and it's not something that I'm interested in really engaging in, because they're not there to actually have a conversation. They're just there to see what they can get a reaction out of people. And so, I agree with you there. But yeah, some people, if you're watching Nathan Redmond, and you aren't convinced that he has both improved and that he has talent and that he has the potential to grow more, then I don't think you're actually watching. I think you have your mind made up, and the truth is people get better and worse over time, and you have to be able to judge them on that. So I think that's where we stand on that. And I don't know. I was pretty impressed with Redmond yesterday. I think as everybody should have been. Who I wasn't impressed with though, Danny Ings. Not a great day for him. Looked like he really lacked confidence in a number of ways. You sitting in the seat where you were, you would have seen him kind of fail to get the ball onto his favorite foot several times, to taking extra touches, getting the ball taken off of him. Frustrating from my perspective, but in the stands, what was the sentiment around him yesterday?
Well, the thing was with Ings was it sort of sums up not sums up, because obviously I don't want to be too critical on him, because like I said, I think he's still got a lot of work left. There's still a lot of work in him that he can improve on. But yeah, yesterday just I think summed up obviously he's not scored since December, and you can tell that because yesterday Redmond really tried to set him up. Obviously there was one setup, he put it across as I think what you just mentioned, across the box to him, and he just couldn't get his feet behind the ball. And you could tell when he obviously was taken off. You could tell he wasn't happy, and obviously the crowd were really appreciative of him, and obviously everyone does see him as one of our own. So obviously everyone's trying to stick behind him. And the thing is, it's just made me learn a little bit of a lesson, because obviously when I look at people like that, you think all they need is one moment and they'll change their whole time. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, like Redmond, everyone used to go on about him. He's one player of the season. Why not next season, Danny Ings? The thing is with Danny, he has a good pre-season, the injuries disappear, and he starts to score goals. And I mean, he was one of our top scorers this season. So do you know what I mean? He's got the goals there. But the thing for me with him is it's the injuries. Once he gets them out of his game, which is obviously when you're someone that's injured like that, or has had two massive injuries in your past, it is a tough one. But you could just tell yesterday that he just looked, do you know what I mean? He just had that look of, I don't know what the right word is, he just had that look, do you know what I mean? Where, I don't know what the right word is on that, but he just had that look about him when he come off yesterday, that he wasn't happy where he's at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's where Hasenhuttl can make the difference, is when he comes off and he looks like that, I would be upset a little bit if he came off and he's high-fiving everybody and he's super happy because he didn't have a great game. And as a professional, you got to hold yourself to a pretty high standard, and not playing well means, I need to do better. But he didn't come off and look like he was going to go sulk and feel sorry for himself. So I think that's good. And I also think that Ralph's going to, grab him, put him in a headlock or whatever, just give him a hug and say, look, we know you can do this. We know that you're fighting against your body that is kind of failing you, but what are we paying for him? 18, 20 million? Like, he's ours.
Yeah. And that comes into place, obviously. Is it 1st of July, I think, is it?
Yeah.
I'm wrong. But yeah, that deal comes into, so it'd be a permanent signing anyway. So like I said, it'd be his prerogative to get better.
Yeah, and I don't think there are very many people who don't want him around. I think there are a lot of people, though, who are worried about his injury record, especially playing under this style of football, which is not the style of football that he was signed, when Hughes got him. And I don't think it was a Hughes signing, but I think that it was, you look at the way we were playing, we needed that type of a guy, and I don't know how his body's going to hold up, but that leads us to maybe needing another striker in the window. And I think that's a totally valid argument. I think there's a good chance that Austin is gone, or he's at least been allowed to leave. So I think that'll be good. And I think Ings will come alive. And as you mentioned, Ings is, near the top of our goal scoring, charts for the season. I think Redmond may have overtaken him overall with the goal yesterday. These are things I should check before we start recording. But we'll catch up and figure it out. But, it's just the fact that he hasn't scored this calendar year that is worrying, but he's also missed a lot of time through injury. And to be honest, like, Saints have found other places to get goals from, which we've always said we needed. But now we got to start getting them from up top again.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the goals from other players have helped the cause and probably not been made the news on Ings that bad, obviously, because people like Ward-Prowse, obviously, as you said, Shane Long started scoring, Redmond, obviously Valerie pops up with a couple of goals. Do you know what I mean? So people don't think about it, but obviously now the season's over, people are like thinking, hold on a minute. Do you know what I mean? Next season, we need more goals up top. Like you said, Austin, I'm convinced he's going, because I don't know if you saw his Twitter post yesterday, basically saying he put up a thank you, obviously, to the kit man. So I think I think he's getting ready to depart. So we might even have a club, because I think he done a post the day before saying about being in, I think it was, he put a post about something, about a new challenge or something. I don't know if you saw that. He put a picture up of himself. I don't know if you saw that. But
the only challenge I see him accepting is getting that hair color changed, but that's different.
Yeah, I think that's ready for his interviews in the summer, I think. I don't know if that's
trying to make himself look a bit younger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
So just jumping back to the goal stats, if you go Premier League goals only, Ings is our top goal scorer with 7. Overall, Redmond has 9. That's not a lot, but if you go overall, Redmond is near the top of every offensive category. So I'll take that as more evidence that he is really working well. And if you go to league stuff, just the Premier League, goals is Ings, shots on target is Ings, chances created is Redmond. Højbjerg makes the most passes, but we won't talk about where all those go. A lot more of them have been forward this year versus previous seasons under people who weren't Hasenhuttl. So that's good. But I don't know. Before we get too far away from this, is there anything in the game yesterday that really stood out? I thought Redmond's performance was really good. We talked about that. We talked about Ings. Do we need to talk about Gunn's mistake? Does that lead to something? Because that was, I mean, to be quite honest, we should have just dealt with Huddersfield. And I don't think it was complacency on our part. But definitely since we got safety, since we clinched safety, however you want to say it, since we secured Premier League football for next season, the energy hasn't been there, and that's a little bit worrying. But it's also very understanding because the guys have been beat down for almost an entire year of just kind of being stuck in this, trying to go forward and can't get it done. And now they get to the final day of the season. They want to put on a good show, but it just doesn't click for them that day, and we wind up with a draw. But Gunn's mistake, it was bad. I don't think there's any hiding it.
Well, the thing, like I said, I was literally, unfortunately, it was right in front of me because obviously where my seat was, I could see Gunn literally right in front of me, and I saw him with the ball, and I said to a friend next to me, I think he's going to lose it. And then all of a sudden, the problem was, I think, if there is any defence for it, I think Gunn thought he had more time than he originally planned because he got onto his foot, and then he had hold of it, and the Huddersfield player was right, and I thought he's going to lose this. So I think the problem with Gunn is, but even Ralph said it after the game, that he's still got a lot of work he's doing. So I mean, that's the thing. Our keepers, if you think about it, our keepers have not a problem position because obviously you think that it's changed. Obviously, we've had McCarthy, we've had Gunn, obviously Forster come in. Obviously, I'm not really looking at that as him fighting for the number one. But you know, when we've changed keepers, it seems next, and I don't know if you're the same as me, but it makes me think we're still not sure who will be number one next season because you know what I mean? I'm not sure that confirms it for me. Not sure about you.
So I know that Adam Leach had mentioned that in training, the way everybody talks about training, Forster looks the best out of anybody in training. That he far and away looks like the best keeper we have in training. That said, he still lacks confidence when it comes to the games. And he, his fall from grace was so bad, gone from, I clearly remember talking with Joe Hart struggling a couple of seasons ago. Forster was in line to be England's number one. He was our number one. He was having a great season. He signed that big, long contract, had the injury, came back, was fighting for it, and then it just never really happened. And then the confidence went. He couldn't get down to block low shots, and people piled in on him, and he kind of disappeared for a year. He came back in. It's hard to say he had a good game against West Ham, allowing 3 goals, but I don't think all of them were his fault. But that's been kind of the situation with Saints in recent seasons, is that we lose. Goalkeepers get blamed for goals, but it's not always them. Yesterday, that's definitely Gunn's fault. But I think Gunn is going to be the goalkeeper of the future, and I think it's between Forster and McCarthy to decide who's going to be the number 2. McCarthy had a brief spell as number 1, but I think, honestly, I think Forster has a more likely chance of sticking around simply because of the contract that he's on. It's going to be difficult to find somebody to take that off of him, and I think therefore it's easier to move McCarthy on because the contract that he's on is more manageable in terms of other teams looking for him. So it's going to be, I think that's going to be it. It's not going to make people happy, I don't think, but I think that'll be what happens. I think Gunn will be the number 1 for the next couple of seasons because that's why you buy a young keeper like that. And I think those are the things you learn from. And just luckily we were already safe, and he wasn't learning that lesson and costing us, going down to the championship and having his old club, or the club he was on loan with it last year, come back up and without him.
Yeah, so I mean, but obviously it's not just the keepers. I think obviously the defence is the problem as well, because obviously at the moment, well, the season ended with Stevens and Bednar out. Obviously the defence did get solid when when Ralph did the Vestergaard, Yoshida, Bednar out. I thought that was pretty strong with obviously Valerie on the right, Bertram on the left. So obviously that hasn't helped as well. So that's why, but that's another reason why in the summer we need to reinforce that centre back position, because we need to think, if we do lose, like I said, of Yoshida and Vestergaard, we unfortunately, like I said, I don't mean to keep going on about him, but Jack Stevens for me just isn't good enough. But the reason he's being played is because we haven't got that depth. Obviously, if you go past Stevens, there's the youngster Alfie Jones, and then there's another, I think is Ralph's compatriot, is it Clara? That's another one. But we can't, but Ralph's probably thinking, I don't want to bring Alfie Jones into the mix. So obviously Stevens is basically, obviously there's Bednarak, who we know is quality performer week in, week out, but Stevens isn't that quality performer, but he has to play him with the situation he's in.
Yeah, and I mean, worst case scenario, we can do what we did yesterday, which is put Bertrand at the left of a back three, which I don't think is bad. But I think then you are short of options out wide. And if we play this 3-5-2, which we went to yesterday in the second half, I think that means that you're going to need extra wingbacks, because you can't just rely on Target and Valerie to stay fit the whole season. You get into some of those things where you have, even early rounds of the EFL or the FA Cup where you're playing 3 games in 7 days, or even just 2 games in a week, a couple of weeks in a row. Your legs are going to go at some point. That just is what happens. And so you're going to need some sort of cover there at some point. And, we've seen people try to put Sam McQueen there. We've seen people try to play JWP out wide, right? And I think that the midfield we have needs to stay the way it is and not have people be moved out of position, because I think that's where, you can get by with it in a pinch, but it shouldn't be the plan going into a season.
No, and obviously, as you said, Bertrand was used in that left centre back position under Koeman a few years back, I think. And obviously, he'd done that yesterday. I don't know if it changed the game yesterday, but when he done that, it sort of did change, because obviously I'm guessing Long either come off with an injury or Ralph felt, because it was 1-0, maybe try and keep it. I don't know what, because obviously I've never heard if Long was injured, because obviously for him to come off at half time, either he was injured or Ralph wasn't impressed with him. I don't know what was the reason for that at half time. I still haven't heard yet what the reason was either.
I think it could be a number of things, and part of it could just be, we didn't really create that many chances in the first half in that 4-2-2-2 system. And so because of that, you think traditionally this season we've been much better with a back three. We've looked more solid in a back three. So you switch to that. You get some width on the pitch in terms of push Valerie up. You push Target up a little bit. And you have what should be a more defensively solid unit with a 1-0 lead. You push Redmond further up the pitch. It all seems to work. And yesterday we just didn't. In the second half, Huddersfield really, I think for large portions of it, had the better of it, which isn't something that I would have expected. It's not something that I was happy with, but it is the last game of the season, and there are a lot of other factors that play into it. So I think that was the most shocking thing for me yesterday, was just how vulnerable we looked with the back three. But I think that just points to the fact that we definitely need a new center back. We need some cover out wide for the fullbacks. And I think, like we said, we need patience with Ings, but we also need somebody to replace Austin, and potentially somebody to, this sounds maybe bad, but somebody to take Ings' place and have Ings replace Austin. Have Ings be the guy that comes on or can play up top, but doesn't have to be everything.
No, I do agree with the statement a little bit on that one, but Long's situation is still an interesting one, because he's got a year and a half left on his, so I don't know if he will be someone that will, not that that's the reason he went off yesterday, because he's leaving, I don't think it's that, but obviously with his age, he's 32, is it 32 now? And obviously he's got a year, so I'm not sure if Ralph's thinking, because obviously despite his goals, Ralph might go, well, Ings might step up and not play Long, but then he might think, I'll keep Long for another seat, like give him another contract. So I think Long's situation is interesting. I mean, I don't know what you think about Long on that one, but I said he could leave this summer as well, depending on what Ralph thinks.
Well, I mean, I made the point earlier that sometimes people get better, and we need to give them credit for that and realize that people can grow and adapt and things like that. But also we get really, really focused on short-term changes, and him scoring, a couple of goals in quick succession doesn't necessarily mean that he is the person we need up top. I think his work rate means a lot. I think the way he runs means a lot. It wins people over like me. I'm a fan of his. I think he fits Hasenhuttl system, but I think I would rather him stay than Austin, honestly. Just because I know we can set him out there in the 75th minute and he can go create a bunch of havoc as teams are trying to come forward. He's an outlet on the counter. And I think that all of that's great. And do I want him starting every week? No. So I would rather him stay along. I'm not sure the money you're going to get for him right now, but maybe if you get rid of him now, this is the last chance for you to actually get anything for him, because once he's 33 or 34, nobody's paying money for him and he'll be at the end of a contract. And I don't really see us, giving him a big, long extension. But I think he definitely has earned at least the right to be in contention for a spot in the squad, even if it's not in the starting 11.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've been up and down on him, and I probably would give him one more season. But like I said, it's just, all I would say is, I suppose, if there's an option, I don't know if this is going to come across right, an option to get someone that would be a long replacement, like does the work rate, obviously with the goals, then they might, he might opt to say, like you said, look at this as the last chance to sell him. He scored a couple of goals, and the club might go, oh, actually, we'll take him now. Or, like you said, they'll offer him another chance. If you can, but my view is, if you could find someone that he wants, like a long but younger, then he might opt for that. But then it's whatever way Ralph decides, I think it will be the right way in his mind.
Yeah, and ultimately that's what we need, is we need people who are willing to work with Ralph and that Ralph, feels he can work with. And if you can't find that, then I think you'll be in a little bit of trouble. But I think Long is definitely one of those guys who just puts his head down and does the work, whatever the manager tells him. And I think that goes a long way. I have a lot more time for people like that than people who are on their kind of own agenda, which we have some of those as well. And some of them are out on loan. And, we spoke a little bit earlier about needing a center back. Just to clarify, we didn't forget about Wesley Hood. I just don't think either of us, from talking to you personally, don't think either of us feel that he's the guy to come back and do that. If you look at other guys on loan, we have Guido Carrillo. Also don't think he's the guy to come in and do that. It may work out though that we have him in the squad next season. But if we went into next season and our three forwards were Danny Ings, Guido Carrillo, and Shane Long, I'd be upset. I wouldn't be happy with that that's not a great starting place, because I just don't think that's going to get it done. And I'd have a really hard time. I think Saints fans would have a really hard time. And that would be one of those things where I could say, yeah, like now I am not going to criticize anybody for complaining, because this is 100% not enough. But I also can't really see us selling him on. I don't know who's going to, unless we take a loss, and maybe we do. And that's another way. That's might be another thing to look at.
Yeah, well, obviously with the people, that's decisions in themselves. We've got Geordie Classy coming back, which I know that's looking certain, because I think he's fallen out with the manager at Feyenoord, so he'll be back. Obviously Wesley, to be fair, I don't really want to see him in a Saints shirt again, and I don't think Ralph does. He made his points clear that he wasn't the centre back that fits his style. Obviously Buffel, another one. A lot of people said they want him back, but a lot of people said get rid. As you mentioned with Carrillo, I don't think he would suit what Ralph would want. He reminds me a little bit, I'm not saying they're the same players, but like an Austin. So I don't think Carrillo would fit that. And I think with now Pellegrino signing a contract with, I can't say the name, Lagunas, I think like that, I could imagine something happening there. Like, I don't know whether another loan deal maybe, or I can't, like you said, I can't see them paying, because I think they're a small, without being rude, obviously we're a small club as well, as in size, but I don't think they'd pay the wages we'd want for him. So it might be a case of another loan deal next season for him there.
Yeah, the best thing about that club is the fact that I think their mascot is a giant cucumber.
Yes.
That's it. That other than that, I don't think there's much to offer there. But yeah, I don't see them coming in and giving us 15 or 16 million for him. That's just not. I don't think that's in their transfer budget. And it's really interesting. You start looking around at what other teams rely on, other leagues outside the top, outside of England. The TV revenue is not nearly what it is, and just as I pay I think $60 a year to get NBC Sports Gold, which means that I can watch, pretty much between that and a standard cable package, you can pretty much watch every Premier League game. They're all on demand. It's great, but for $5 a month, I get ESPN Plus, which is different. And in addition to basketball and hockey and volleyball, which my wife watches, which is really the reason we have it, you get thrown in with all of those things. The Italian League, the Dutch League, the EFL Cup, the FA Cup, all three, the top three divisions of U.S. soccer. So you just look at what I pay. I pay $60 for one, and then I pay basically $60 again for year-round coverage of everything that's not the English Premier League or the French League or the La Liga. So the TV revenue is just not there for these other places, and so for them to come in and ask them to pay that for Guido Correggio, this isn't a charity organization. Nobody's doing that, No,
and obviously, like I said, the money we paid for him, obviously, at the time was ridiculous, to be honest. And obviously, I'm not saying the bloke's a bad guy, and I'm sure he's a great guy to have, but it was, sadly, another waste of money in terms of, obviously, he was signed for Pellegrino, which everyone was like, yeah, Pellegrino signing all round. He didn't do the job. Obviously, we got rid of him quite quickly, and obviously, I said we'll be looking to get rid of him. And that sort of reminds me of the situation we've got with Elanusi as well, because obviously he was, I don't know if we mentioned it, but he was left out of the squad completely on the last day. So I think his future's looking like another one we're going to have to take another loss on, I think. Because obviously he was missing completely, wasn't he? Yeah. Yesterday. Yeah,
we have I wrote about it a little bit in the season summary that I wrote up for Prost International last week, and we are going to have a tough time dealing with some of those contracts and some of those players that we signed in Les Reed's kind of final 6 to 9 months, maybe even 18 months, and it puts the club in a rough spot, especially when you consider the fact that we're not spending money unless we sell first. And so we tied ourselves to long-term contracts. You think of Forster, you think of some of the big money we've spent on guys that are out on loan now and that we can't get people to take, because it's not like we pay extreme wages to these guys. We're not paying these guys $300,000 a week. But for a lot of places around the world, $80,000 a week, $60,000 a week, that's a lot of money. And their stars are not earning that much, so they're definitely not going to pay that much for our squad players, So it's going to take some time to kind of undo that, and we'll just have to see kind of how it goes. But do you have any final thoughts on the game yesterday or anything like that before we move towards answering a couple of listener questions and wrapping this up?
No, I just think time to put a line under the season. I think as a whole, like I said, it wasn't our best season. There's more, I don't know what I'm trying to think of the right word here. There's more reasons to be optimistic, I think, than there was maybe last. Well, no, to be fair, we stayed up and everyone thought we were going to have a good season. But this season, obviously, it's the summer. Thing is, the better answer would be is after the summer's done, see where we are when the transfer window closes, see who we've brought in, see who's gone. Then you would probably think, because this summer, like I said, it's crucial for me in the sense of Ralph getting players in, players going out. Obviously, what happens with loan players. So for me, it just depends on how the summer goes. If obviously it doesn't go as well as we want, we don't get rid of who we want to get rid of, or we don't get in who we want, or we're stuck with players, then like you said, we could have another situation. So it's really dependent on how it goes from here until the start of the season, really.
Yeah, I think that Ralph has done almost as much as he can with the squad that he has. He basically doubled Mark Hughes' points per game rate with the exact same players, with actually getting rid of with fewer players, getting rid of players. And that in and of itself, that's what Ralph can do. But if we stay where we're at, if we don't, in terms of the squad, if we don't improve the squad, if we don't add to the squad, I can't really see us moving really anywhere up the table very far, and that is concerning, because we have seen the tendency to not get the players in that we need. And so it's going to take some work in the transfer window, like we said. And we have a question on that. So we'll go ahead and move towards that now. And just a reminder, you can always submit your questions on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. You can email them to the show at southamptondelivery.com. We'll answer a Patreon question in just a minute, as Patreons get priority for having their questions answered on the show, in addition to getting access to a private chat and getting a bonus podcast per month. But first, before we do that, Kurt Zottles sent this in. He says, we need to sign some players in the summer. Some players you want us to target. Also, what positions do we need to target? In terms of people, I don't know. But in terms of positions, I would say center back, forward, and potentially right back cover. Think Jeremy PA type maybe, or because Valerie's been good and he's got a lot of room to grow, and I think that's what we want. But we maybe need a Cuco Martina, a Jeremy PA, somebody that'll come in and just provide cover at that position. But I don't know. What are you thinking in terms of players and positions?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with all the positions you picked. I think centre back, I said we mentioned that earlier in the podcast, that was a key position. Right back for me, it showed when Valerie was ill, that we missed him at right back. And obviously we had to, as you rightly said, we had to deploy Ward-Prowse at right wing back, and that's not what we want, because that takes him out of his game. So we need, I think you're right, a right back cover, like a Jeremy Pierre sort of position. I think centre back and like another. So I'd probably agree with all three. I think they're the key places for me this summer.
All right. And now a question from a patron, Kevin McGee. And as we're recording this, it is his birthday. So happy birthday, Kevin. And he's been a patron of the show since kind of the very beginning, and it's nice to have his support and the support of everybody else. And so Kevin's question is, how far away are we from being a decent top half team? How many changes do you think we need to make? And I think that outside of the top six, you start thinking of managers who are out there that I would rather have. I can't think of very many. Rafa Benitez always gets a lot of plaudits, and he's earned them. Do I necessarily want that style of football at St. Mary's? No. But that he's a good manager, but you struggle to think of very many managers that inspire more confidence in the team than those guys that are outside of maybe the top 6 or 7. I think that Watford and Wolves have done a great job, and I think their managers have done a great job this season, but I'm pretty happy with Hasenhuttl. So in terms of leadership, I think we're good. I do think we lack a little bit of quality in the squad. Just a few seasons ago, Yoshida was the third or fourth choice center back. He gets in the team every single week now if he is healthy, and that just shows either he's gotten a lot better, which I think he has improved, but I'm not going to say he's basically a Premier League starter up and down the table. So I definitely think that we are just a few quality players away, and we have some leadership off the field. We have some leadership in midfield. I think Højbjerg's done a great job, but I don't really see a leader on the back line, and that was one of the things I was worried about with Angus Gunn is, as a young keeper, will he do that? The guys from Norwich, Norwich, I think I have to say it correctly so I don't get corrected. Norwich said that he would be fine, and I'm not there to hear it, so I don't know, but I think we definitely need a leader on the back line, and we need somebody to score some goals, and I think that those things, we've kind of talked about them over and over, will make the difference and really push us up the table.
Well, the thing is, that's been the question of us for years. Ever since, obviously, Van Dijk left for Liverpool, Fonte left for West Ham. We lost that defensive quality, and I agree with that argument on Yoshi, that he is a brilliant player to have around the squad, but unfortunately he's not a top class centre back. Never will be. And I'm not doing that that's not me having a go at him. Do you know what I mean? He is a great, and when he's coming, he has been brilliant. But he's not, is he? Let's be honest, he's not the top class centre back. He isn't going to be up there with like I said, with Van Dijk. He's not going to be up there with Toby or I'll struggle with his name. Like Vincent Kompany. He's not going to be a guy like that. That's why it shows. Like when Koeman was up here, we had a team that could be in that. I mean, we finished 6th. So we can do it, but the problem is the ambition from the Koeman days with that team to now is not there. So until we get back to that point, we're not going to become a 6th top team. And I'd love us to be up there with Wolves, Leicester. That's where it's like a mini table, isn't it? There's the teams in 7th, 8th. That's where we should be, but we're not there. So we need to rebuild the team, and then maybe. Not next season, maybe possibly the season after if Ralph's still here. And I say that because we know what it's like with managers. Then maybe we can get back. But we need a lot of work within the squad first before we can dream of top 6.
Yeah, and top 6 is a big ask. I think that if you look at what happened when Koeman was around and we were pushing for that, you had teams that were having off years. You look at the rebuilding project that kind of Liverpool was going through. And things like that. If you have somebody abdicate that, you look at Manchester United right now, by their standards, they're having a bad year. And so they are struggling. So that's the chance for one of those teams to get in there. But even so, like, I don't think you'd say Arsenal had a terrible season. They have defensive issues and things like that, but they are still, you look at the table and they are, not that far above Manchester United. And that like you said, that top 6 is going to be tough to crack. Just even some of the money that is involved. The Premier League panel put out a net spend since June 2016, and that's not everything. But it goes Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Everton, because they had that kind of horrible couple of windows where they just signed everyone. Arsenal, Brighton, that's tough to take, and considering they just sacked Chris Hughton just before we started. And Liverpool fall down, but that's partially because of the Coutinho deal. And so things like that. But, we're down there at negative 10 million. We're at the bottom of the table. That'll go away once we sign officially Danny Ings. That'll put us up, at least it'll put us 10 million, above. So but that still only moves us one off the bottom of that. So, definitely have some things to address. But we will we'll kind of see. And I've got to get ready to go to work here in just a few minutes, but, anything else that you'd like to add? Did we gloss over anything, miss anything? Going through the lineup, it looks like we have basically done everything, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that basically covers everything. All I was just going to say was thank you, obviously, for your partnership this season. Obviously, all the edits and all the stuff you've done for, obviously, the Instagram this year. And obviously, I look forward to it again next season. Obviously, I'm sure you'll enjoy not doing any edits for a while, so I'm sure you're like, oh, great, another edit. So,
no, well, I mean, here's my, like, this is a more of a personal thing, but I don't like sitting around. I get really antsy and I feel like I need to do stuff. And I also like having a plan. Like, so, basically my Wednesday evenings are, we have guitar practice, and then we have, the kids go to youth group. And when the kids go to youth group, I basically run to the coffee shop and I get out my laptop and I start working on the edit, and I try to get the edit to you in that hour and a half. I try to get my edit done at the same time. And so I have this kind of very strict schedule that I keep myself on. And the problem with it is that as soon as my wife is off work and now she wants to hang out, which is stuff I should do, all of a sudden it goes like, oh, shoot, like, when am I going to get this done? And things like that. So I have some definite things I need to sit down and think about. The edits have been fun, and we couldn't have done them without the help of Matt at the We Are Southampton page. And he was kind enough to work with me because he is much better at Photoshop than I am. And it's definitely a learning curve for me, but he's so good, the club actually now pay him to do stuff. So thanks to him for all of that, but definitely thanks to you for the partnership. It's been a lot of fun just talking to you and having you to bounce ideas off of and things like that. And so, like, any benefits of social media growth or podcast listenership aside, it's been a huge blessing for me to be able to talk to you as much as we have. So I appreciate that. And so thank you first of all for that, just the friendship, and then secondary, thanks for the help in terms of growing the show. And I do apologize because every time you post about the podcast, it is the least liked thing on your page. So I do apologize for that. It just is the way things go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still share it. Do you know what I mean? It's still, obviously, it's part of the partnership, and I'll continue to do that next season and beyond. So, no, it's great for me, and I think it's good as well, because obviously we're both from, do you know what I mean, different places, so it's always handy if you miss something or I miss something. Do you know what I mean? So it's always good. Always good for that. Yeah,
and it feels good not to have to worry about being a news source. Like, between the Twitter page and the work you do on Instagram, the news is covered. I can just focus on doing the show, and I think it all works out. So I think it works really, really well. So thanks for that. But if I don't go to work, I'm gonna get fired. And in case anybody's wondering, this doesn't pay, so we got to go. But Jay, thank you so much. It's been I wouldn't say it's been a great season, but it's been a great season in terms of I'm getting up from here every single weekend smiling, and I'm happy to put the show out. And I've made lots of connections and friendships and partnerships, and so for that, in that respect, it's been a good season. And I don't know, I'm happy to continue to do it. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we have a season where we move up the table more than a place, because I think that would be important. But anyway, Jay, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll do this again.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
That does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to the Southampton page and to Jay for running the page and for allowing me to be a partner. Not gonna lie, the sharing that happens, it's pretty one way. I do appreciate it, though. I'll do what I can to help you out as much as I can, and I look forward to the coming season and year. It's been fantastic. But that is a wrap for the 2018-2019 Premier League season. 16th place finish, some wins against the top six, 29 points dropped from winning positions. I'll stop going on that. But we've got a new coach, two executive openings, and a second place trophy for Liverpool. So that's always good. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. We have actual credit stuff to do. So if you'd like to get in touch with the Southampton page, you can do that at Southampton page. Jay is at Fatal J. Links to all of those things are in the show notes. And while we're here, we should just say thank you to Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page, who was so good at doing graphic design that the team hired him to do theirs. So congratulations to Matt. You can find his page at the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt did the logo for the show. It's been great. Hopefully you'll hear from him later this summer. If you want to get in touch with this show, you can do that on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Easiest way to do it is to go to southamptondelivery.com, click the links from there, or just look for at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter and Instagram, and at facebook.com/SFC Delivery on Facebook. If you have not done so yet, you can subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. There are plenty of links on southamptondelivery.com to help you. If you do not know how, you can play it straight from the website too. That also works. If you're familiar with this platform and you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving it a rating. If you really, really like it and you want some extra stuff, including extra podcast episodes, a private group chat, and priority for getting your questions answered, maybe patreon.com/SFC Delivery is for you. But either way, I appreciate you listening, and thank you so much. That does it for now. If you'd like to be featured on next week's episode, which is the kind of end of season wrap-up episode, you can do that. Get in touch with me, send me a DM, send me an email, say, hey, I want to be a part of the show. I'll give you a link so you can sign up, and I'll talk to you on Skype, and then you'll be here with me. And most people enjoy it. Some people don't, but that's okay. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your support. And until next time, remember that together, we march on.